What's good, everybody? It's finally time to do this one, the offline fighting game experience, and also the mindset between the offline versus the online, you know? Because there's a lot to go over with the offline. I've actually tried to do this recording a few times already, but once again, it's just everything's so out of order that I could go over, but we'll take through each thing one step at a time, right? And I'll try to condense everything as usual. But yeah, just to start things off, like I've been at it for not as much time as you guys might think, despite me playing fighting games for like 10 plus years. But I think I'm realizing that's actually a lot of people, you know? There's been people that have been playing since they were kids, but probably even up till now still haven't gone out to any like local event. And I realize with this scene specifically, like, just from my perspective, honestly, like, a lot of people tend to make excuses for it, but also a lot of us are, like, grown and stuff, you know? Like, some of us are now into our, like, later 20s, early 30s, or even in the 40s, too, so by now, you just got adult responsibilities and shit, you know? And that's starting to happen to me, too. And I'm even starting to look at now, like, at other things that are a lot more important as an adult and stuff, and putting all that local shit to the side. But from time to time, I might still come out to. But hey, man, I got a mission to take care of, you know. But you know, for those that are a lot younger, you probably have a lot more freedom anyways to come out. So this video is for you. And it's time to give you guys my own experience with this, you know? From the day I started up until where we are in the present time, you know? A lot has happened. A lot has happened that I can tell you guys. But also, for the most part, things have been pretty chill when coming out locally. But let's get things started off, you know? So what is it even like just to get at the venues, you know? Because if you're like myself, or like most people that I've talked to, like, some of these events happen like at minimum like 40 minutes. They're like 40 minutes away from wherever you currently reside, right? And for myself, like, damn near every venue is like an hour plus away, you know, with only one being like within like 40 minutes away, which even then it's already hard to get to, because I already work late afternoons and stuff, and by the time like I even get out, like, brackets already starting, so there's not even a shot that I would be able to make that shit, you know? And you know, half the time it's just not even worth it, you know? You're tired and stuff, you want to go home, and you know, that's just where I'm at with my case, you know? But you know, from time to time there are moments in which I am able to make it in, you know, and you know, I stop by and stuff, talk to the people there, run some games, enter bracket, and things are smooth for the most part. But in the beginning it was definitely different, I should say, because when I started, it was at the launch of Street Fighter 6, so everybody in the community was pretty active. There was a lot of players coming out to play Street Fighter 6, coming from multiple different games. Like, even those that were mostly Tekken players had participated in Street Fighter brackets waiting for Tekken 8, you know? And I remember doing a bit of research around the time with some of the weeklies at some of the venues around, and some of them hit the number entrance for Street Fighter 6 up till 70. And that is insane for a weekly. Like, most monthlies don't even hit that, right? And I don't think anything like that will be ever replicated ever again, you know? And the next time we see something like that, it has to be a game that's just as big as Street Fighter 6 at launch, if not even bigger, you know? Which is already tough to kind of top, because Street Fighter is the godfather of all fighting games, uh, or maybe a more accurate one would be that karate arcade game with the white and red gi fighter. But I forgot what it was called. But for the most part, Street Fighter is the foundation to what we have now existing, majorly. And I remember around that time, I started to become the most active in coming out to weeklies every chance that I could get and stuff. I remember every other event that was happening as far as like monthlies go, regionals. I was pretty much there. So I've gotten to know a lot of the people too around at the same time. Those that resided within like the different areas of the DMV and stuff. And it was actually quite magical during that time too. I'm not gonna lie, for the first year, like the vibe was definitely different than what it is now. Nowadays, like because a lot of those venues that existed around the time have now shut down, and nothing really big has happened since. And it's kind of a rough spot in my area as far as like the local scene goes. Even though there are still a few handful of people that are trying to open stuff up, keeping things running. So there is a sliver of hope, for the future. But for the time being, like, things are just kind of slim right now. But if you're somewhere out on the West Coast, Texas, New York, I've heard things were different. Some of you guys could probably confirm that for me, or if you're in a different area than that, share your own experiences. I'm down to hear what it's like out there, But traveling to these events have been one of the biggest struggles I've had, because of the fact that not only were they an hour plus away, but especially in my region, like when traffic hits, like, it can be some of the worst in the nation. And I'm not kidding there when I say that too. Especially in DC, in the capital, right? Like, I actually remember reading up a few things online that actually had talked about how statistically DC was actually turning out to be having the worst like traffic in the nation, more so than like cities like New York, which I actually could believe, to be honest, based on like what my own experiences were like driving in DC. Weekdays and weekends, it's always shit, man. So, I've never been to New York or any other major metropolitan city, but I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't be surprised if DC was the worst amongst them, because it's 24/7 that there's like heavy traffic and stuff. And any like journey that you make, whether it be 10 minutes to an hour, like that gets multiplied by 3 times more, because of how many people are just like on the road trying to get to wherever the fuck they are. And everyone is driving hella aggressive too, so it's just insane. That's why, like, every time I've headed to the event, held out somewhere in DC, like, I always took the metro. That's what people had advised me to do. So if you're able to kind of avoid that in your area by taking things such as like a metro and stuff, or riding in with somebody, I would advise that, because man, that it was not even worth the trouble just to get there, And especially if you've been to DC, even just parking in the garages is gonna cost you like $60 just to park. Man, it was all fucked, But aside from that, actually, getting past all that too, the actual experience of being in the venues, is something that has been relatively the same for the most part everywhere I've gone. Every time I've gone to an event, like, because of the fact that the way that I am now, I'm more sociable than I was like the first time around. I went out to a venue. Um, so I've gotten to get cool with a lot of the people there for the most part. I've never really had anything like, uh, as far as like some kind of like beef and stuff with the people. I've never had really much of troubles. Um, and I don't know. From my end, like a lot of people talk about how sometimes the scene can be toxic and stuff. I haven't really experienced it. I have seen goofy behaviors, but nothing to where I could say that it's like something that you would want to avoid. But then again, like to those that are not out yet in the scene locally in their area, just have a general sense of street smarts about yourself. Don't act too goofy, like in a weird way to where people just don't like you, and just be cool and like vibe and play games and stuff. And you'll actually find out that you have a lot of room to be flexible with how you act and stuff. Especially me, people that know me, they know I like to troll too. I've gotten away with a lot actually. But it's because for the most part they know I be like just playing around and stuff, and pressing buttons. So yeah, it's been pretty positive for the most part. Now, as far as like actually performing in game, that's where we can get into a lot actually. I don't really treat Street Fighter 6 differently than how I play it online. But I will say that everything else that I had mentioned so far is something now that you have to learn how to micromanage a lot better, because they can actually affect you a lot more when you do play offline. Especially since I already said that traveling from my end is already like such a task on its own. There'd be a lot of times to where I come steaming from not the tires but from my own head, trying to get through and make it in time for bracket. And that's something that you don't want to do and stuff, because you're already set off balance by like the trip there alone, and you would want to show up at these events as grounded and stable as you can be before bracket starts. Be as fresh as you can. But a lot of the times for myself, it definitely was not possible. And that's only because of the fact too that from my schedule, like I would have to like charge through just to make it at these events on time for bracket, because of the fact that I had an hour plus to travel, sometimes with traffic, and sometimes I would be like in a situation where like I'm coming off of work or doing something else. So that's just like me personally. A lot of you guys may not even have that kind of trouble, but I know a few people that have shown up, that come to work, and maybe have also been kind of tired too. So that's just things to keep in mind. Just don't stress too much about it. Come as fresh as you can is the point I'm trying to say. That also includes getting food when you can. If you're hungry beforehand, you might as well just like eat before bracket and stuff, just to keep yourself satiated, and also have allow your head to have a bit of energy to play. Because now going into a few examples of my own, like I've had brackets and where I've showed up like completely fasted too, and well, let's just look at the results right here. 0-2, yes. This Ultimate Master Ken that posts videos of me making fools out of online players is actually a fraud. I actually lost. I didn't even make my seed. God, I'm such a fool. I'm the worst player in the world. Like, bro, it just happens for me. Like for this event, I was completely exhausted, tired, and even someone I knew there, he had told me like, yeah, you look hungry, bro. Bro, I was starving. And you know what? After I went 0-2, you know what the fuck I did, man? I drove out the venue to go get me some goddamn chicken. Because God knows I was going to die if I wasted a bit of time anymore, you know? Headed back to the venue, was smiling, eating my chicken, man. Oh my God. But, you know, like, that's just to get you guys to see that, you know, obviously, like, coming starving is going to affect your performance too. But don't neglect it, you know. Me, I tend to kind of ignore it just because, like, I fast and I practice intermittent fasting, right? And sometimes I'll do, like, actual full-on, like, 3-day fast too. I actually did one again, and I actually end up repeating the same mistake too. I ended up losing as bad as this too. But now let me show you guys the difference when because like as far as like this the hunger goes and stuff, it actually has its own. I have a lot of stories behind it too. Like, here's one of the Dragon Ball brackets I entered too, right? I kind of had the same situation happening. Despite me winning like my first match too, right? I ended up losing the next one against Kaiju. He was actually pretty decent as a player himself though. But I remember just feeling so hungry and stuff too. I was like, damn, I need some food, man. I have no energy. Then one of these guys, this guy right here, shout outs to this man, Running Joke. Bro, he made brownies because this, like I don't think I've mentioned it, but this is the last event for Xanadu, right? The last bread and butter. And so he made brownies and shit for everybody. It was like, yo, because I like brownies too. I was hungry. Like, bro, it was a given. Like, I'm there immediately to, you know, pick some up to eat. And then my performance afterwards, after that, I just swept through a lot of these guys, you know? And I ended up coming from loser's side, of course. And then I ended up, you know, taking back grand finals, 3-0'd him. Then he only, it was a 3-1 in this case. And I ended up taking back bracket. But, yo, it was just the world of difference when I actually was able to eat something, you know? But I wouldn't advise you guys to, you know, eat something as bad as, like, well, they were homemade brownies. So they weren't as bad as, like, you know, me going into a gas station and getting some Pringles and shit and fucking one of those like gummy worms and shit. Like, I would advise you guys to look into something a lot more healthier, like a banana per se. But, you know, you do what the fuck you want. I'm not your doctor. I'm not your nutritionist. But the point is that it can make a world of difference, you know, because this is what happens when you come, you know, at your worst, you know. Like this, I could not save myself. I couldn't do anything to save myself, and it happened again, you know. But that's because that's just on me, you know. I neglected those aspects that really do matter, just because I myself don't take it all too that seriously. I've had my wins already to really feel comfortable with not being at first at every other like local event, you know. And yeah, that pretty much was it. I took the Dragon Ball bracket here, and I was feeling pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. Shout outs to this man, because those brownies really did a lot. and they weren't infused with like weed or anything. They were just regular brownies, man. Like, they did a lot. I always make sure now to like be well fed, you know. I'm especially since I work out a lot. Yeah, I'm trying to eat a lot more than what I usually do. And moving on from that too, right? Like, even well, actually, I'm gonna save this for something else, but there's been a lot of situations like that, you know. These two examples that I've showed you right here just happen to be ones that exist on each of the other ends, you know. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, this happens in like the best case scenario when I'm actually locked in and stuff. I had good sleep, blah blah blah, things like that. I'm well fed. I'm able to actually perform, and I end up taking bracket, And then this is what happens when everything just kind of fucked outside of that. I couldn't even win a game to save my life, even against people I usually beat too. But shout out to these two because without him, for one, I wouldn't even find out about one of the venues that I'll usually go to, and they're cool people. But yeah, just keep that in mind. If you're like, be fully energized to come out to these events so you can perform at your best too. Get some good sleep and stuff, and try to make it to these events if you're traveling out far as smooth as you can. And try to make it early so you can get settled in and stuff. You know what I mean? And aside from that, like, I guess we can now go into like more into like the actual experiences of playing these games in bracket and stuff. I've only had like 3 events with Dragon Ball here, just because all of these events for Dragon Ball have been held later in its life, to where you would only ever see it at these events if people voted in for it, kind of thing. Excuse me. But for Street Fighter, like, I've had the same thing goes, like, I've had events where I would come fasted, like here before, and even if I don't go exactly 0-2 and stuff, but like there would eventually be one game or like that one player where they were able to take advantage of the fact that my mental energy was kind of fucked, so I couldn't just rely on things such as like autopilot and shit. It's just it's just more of like what I said already. What else I could say, man? I already told you guys to make sure you guys get in a couple games to warm up too. Because I remember for this event too, every event that I've played for Dragon Ball, I always made sure to get in like at least 3 days beforehand games online to freshen up a bit. Even though it's easier with Dragon Ball, right? Because of the fact that with Dragon Ball, it's not a hard game to really forget how to forget how to play. And once you do pick back up the rhythm and stuff, like every time I've done it, I've been playing pretty much as if I've never forgotten it before, and I would fuck afterwards, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really like every time I've promoted something on this channel, it's not to tie yourself too much to ego and stuff, but I can't lie, with Dragon Ball it's kind of the opposite. Like, I can't lie, I just been if only I had like the actual credentials for brackets to show you guys, or any kind of, but I can't really speak on it too much because I don't have these kinds of credentials to really prove it, which is something I do regret. I wish I've come out a lot more to the locals to really have you guys. I would probably have something a lot more to talk about, but maybe later down the line when there's a game again that comes out similar to Dragon Ball that I could take over and stuff, then I can really show you guys. If only, man. But moving on to the other Dragon Ball bracket, right? And I wanted to use this one right here to, because it kind of does tie in with like everything I've said, because by this time, because like this is something you also have to consider too, maybe early on in bracket and stuff, because what went on here, for example, was like there's a lot of story, there's a lot to that went here, because of the fact that there was 304 motherfuckers there, everyone was crammed shoulder to shoulder at the venue. So it was already hard to have everyone organized, and call up, each other to get games through. And every game that's listed here, I'm actually surprised we didn't see anybody for Persona 4. But as you can see, like, every game here was being played for the last event, and people were coming out from, I think, like, up in like Tri-State to come down and play, if I remember right. Somebody saying that. But yeah, and there was a very limited amount of setups for that too. Like for the Dragon Ball bracket, there was only 2, and at some point, they actually took out those setups to run Tekken 8 because of the fact that Tekken 8 had, let's see, had 98 fucking entrants, dude. 98 motherfuckers were playing this game. Like, that's the most I've seen for any bracket locally so far. Like the last time I seen something like this was like 70 players for I think I already mentioned it, like 70 players for Street Fighter 6 for a weekly when the game launched. But let's just round this up to 100 motherfuckers playing Tekken, So understandably, the TOs want to get through that as quick as they can, So at some point, Dragon Ball couldn't even run their games to finish this bracket. And I was pissed. I was like, damn, really? I'm trying to win this shit already. Look at how I'm talking too, right? But it's because at that point, this happened after I won this bracket right here, which happened 3 months prior at a different event that had also, the venue also had shut down here, So in a way, I kind of had like my own reputation to maintain at that point as being the king of Dragon Ball. Even though I ain't shit for just winning these brackets, to be honest and stuff. I'm not shit at all. Especially nowadays, now that I don't play the game or practice it in any kind of way. Yeah, I'd probably get floored by a lot of people that still play. What else? Yeah, and also like at some point, because I also entered Street Fighter 6 too, I actually had to wait like around an hour and a half to play my next match afterwards. So I was able to finish this bracket in between like my first match and into my second one, And for Street Fighter 6, I ended up making, I believe, 13th out of... no, that's not it. Where is it? Cave, bread and butter. Bro. Oh, I'm tripping. Oh, it's because I... Hold on. Yeah, I ended up placing 13th out of standings. Let's see that. 13th out of... Where is it? 79 players. So, not the worst in the world, but I was hoping for somewhere in top 8, But, it's... There was a lot of time that had gone through. At one point, like my first match, I remember this. I actually had to bypass the first match because the guy I was supposed to play against, he was actually the old TO for this venue right here, and he actually DQ'd in order to help things run a lot more smoother. So shout outs to Sugar Bear for one. He definitely helped things run a lot more smoothly so everyone could get games in and stuff. Legendary TO, man. Also, what else, man? Like, I'm just looking back at it now, man. Everybody was... It was so packed and stuff. And a lot of things happened. It went on for so long that Yeah, a lot of people that I knew, they didn't even want to run their matches in losers at, and they just went home and stuff. I had a buddy tell me like, yeah, once if I lose the next match, I'm just going straight home. And I didn't blame him because everybody was waiting like an hour or two for their next match, and that wait can take you out because I've had that happen before at a different event. And I've seen people even sleep between that time. That's crazy. But yeah, there's a lot that can happen between these events. Things such as like the long wait times, the hunger. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about here before I went on a whole different tangent. The same thing actually happened here, and this bracket was actually held at 9:30, so it was already like, how long was it after 6 p.m.? 3 hours after Street Fighter 6 had started. I think 6 had, I don't know if it ended, because the grand finals for this one went on for so long, dude. It was like we were like memeing it because of how slow the players were playing. For those that know Street Fighter, y'all know Doc Morales, right? I'm pretty sure those in the scene know who Doc is. Like, y'all know how he plays. That motherfucker. Man. Dinosaurs will be resurrected before this man will finish a ranked match. That's all I can say. Especially when I've played against him. You have to be built in a different kind of way to have that kind of patience to beat him. But moving on to this, right? Like, more or less the same of what happened 3 months later with the other Dragon Ball bracket. The difference is I didn't get knocked out in the winner's side. I did make it all the way to grand finals, but at this point I was losing a lot of my own mental energy. A lot of that physical momentum kind of had like felt drained for me. So, he was pretty much able to kind of cook me for that first grand final set after I sent him the losers. And I couldn't really keep up with that speed, because it came down more to a sense of like, how fast was I able to make a decision or an adjustment, and he was already way ahead of me tenfold and stuff. I could not really win that race with him per se to try to like act first or speed up ahead of him mentally, and I knew from then and there I had to make some kind of adjustment too, because I realized, okay, yeah, he's running off of a lot of adrenaline and stuff because he really wants to win, even more so than I did. He has people cheering him on in the back, hyping him up and stuff, and I feel hella drained mentally. I haven't eaten. It's been way longer. I probably only had breakfast at that time too. So it's been a while since I ate. So, to be honest, what I had in my head at the time winning this one, and the way I was able to get that reset, because it wasn't, like I said, it didn't come down to our actual in-game knowledge of like what we knew about Dragon Ball. Because with Dragon Ball, I told you guys I know life the shit out of that game. So a lot of the foundation that I have fundamentally for attack fighter like Dragon Ball was already so strong that I would be able to carry myself through a lot, even against players who were not bad on their own, But in this case, I definitely had to, make a conscious decision. I actually had to think a lot more strategically, I couldn't, once again, I said rely on anything such as like mental speed, any kind of momentum, because this guy had me beaten there. So I had to think like, okay, he is way ahead of me as far as that. So I have to play. I thought of this, like, I had to take things slow, I couldn't act and move or try to catch up with him in that kind of speed. So I purposely went. I doubled down even further down, and I went slower. I took my bit of time during the reset, got some water, and I had to think about how I was gonna approach the next few matches and stuff because, like I said, he was playing really aggressive and stuff, you know. So I had to find a way to play at a slower pace and slow things down in order to really pick apart and read, like, you know, him to actually like take things around in my favor, so we're not both playing in I guess a cat and mouse kind of game, you know, not that kind of chase, you know, trying to like speed run our way through to first place. So that's when I was able to actually like, you know, beat him 3-1 and stuff, because now I acted more on like, you know, what meant on like what was there mentally, you know. I forced the pace of the match to slow down, so I was able to see like how he would act and stuff, and I was able to pick apart like the gaps here and there, and I was no longer really running into a lot of the punches that he threw, and from there I was able to take things back to my level, you know, and in a pacing and game, and where I now had control again, you know, because that's really what you want to do when playing in any game, you know, be it grand finals or in winners round 1. That's always what you want to do. You want to take control, you know, of much space, of much of the situations as you can in game, in order to increase the chances and odds of victory. And that's what ended up would help me beating him, you know. But he, like, shout outs to him, man. He's a really good player on his own. And, you know, if I hadn't have done that, he definitely would have beat me, you know. And even then, the same thing goes for Kaiju too, you know. But even then, I had learned my mistake from here and stuff, you know. But the only issue was here was actually the food, you know. But I definitely had that all in my head at the same time. And these were just like two examples out of the many different brackets that I've been in, you know. Like, there's been a lot of brackets that I've had, and as of recent, like the few, I don't really consider these too much of anything, but this was legitimate for the most part. This was legitimate, and for the most part, like, my averages have been a lot better as far as like finishing in top 8 for most of these events. So I've gotten a better rhythm, you know, into everything. But nowadays it's just like, I don't know. I don't really think too much about it, right? About all of these. I'm pulling out these for just to get you guys to see what my own performance has been like, and what state of being I was then and there too, you know. And there's a lot that I could go over too, aside from just like me feeling hungry and shit, and like the moment here. Well, actually, this was a good example of me actually making, you know, a more a competitive, actual mental adjustment for competitive purposes, you know. Like, I actually sat with myself. I didn't rush into the next match. I took a bit of time to analyze where I was in game, and also outside of it, how I felt, what I was thinking and stuff, what was going on around the other player and stuff, what I was able to see from them. And I knew how to, you know, turn the tides to my favor back again, and then, you know, 3-1, you know. So, and the same, like I said, the same thing goes for when we go into like Street Fighter 6, you know. Only, of course, I'm better at Dragon Ball than Street Fighter 6, so I'm actually taking first place in Dragon Ball. And yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say for the most part. Um, so if I really had to sum it down to a lot of things, like from what I've learned to be successful when playing offline for the most part, just outside of the game, like um, you know, come as fresh as you can, get in a good night's sleep, have don't come in hungry or fasted like I am, like an idiot. Be well fed and stuff. Come early if you can. Get in casual games to warm up. Get used to the setups out there because sometimes the setups can be ass and stuff. And also know who you're playing against too. And learn to be flexible with what happens in bracket because you never know how bracket's gonna turn out. Everything's a dice roll as to what ends up turning out after. And it all comes down to, because to be honest, like the only like half the time, I'm not gonna lie, I was able to run through these brackets because like of the like actually going like stepping away from the stuff outside, like nothing can take away from all the work I've put in and those 6+ years of playing Dragon Ball. Like this is mostly the result of me putting in the time, the work, the studying to playing Dragon Ball in order to be successful at it, to be a winner. Like this is the game that I had at one point dedicated myself to hopefully one day become a champion at, even though now Dragon Ball's not in any main stage. So that dream is past. And as far as 6 goes, like I don't really care, honestly. I have my small wins here and there. I'm good with that. But no matter how big or small the bracket is like the same principle still stands. Like you see a lot of pros do a lot of crazy things. Like fucking Tokido held out, like I think he held out like a tape measure or a ruler to measure like the distance between his eyes and the monitor. I think Tokido did that, right? I already made a video on this too. He fucking works out for fighting games and shit. The motherfucker also what else? I think Xiaohai was the one that did this, but he had like a white board that had covered his hands over his stick so that no one was able to see what his inputs were like. Like people do a lot of weird things, but it's all for the name of the game, dude. Like it's to have them, it's to cover as many gaps to them as a player, and also to give them as much advantage as they can, and like I said, like if I didn't have the brownies here, yeah, I would have got cooked. And if I was stupid and just ran with my emotions and stuff and headed in and tried to like butt heads with him at the game that he was playing, I would have got cooked. I mentally responded here, and I just made sure I was not hungry. Things like that. But hopefully you guys can see that even some of the little things like that really do matter and stuff. And also another thing too, because I realize that I'm definitely a individual that's a lot more comfortable in their skin than most. So some people are not really used to crowds. Some people don't like having a crowd behind them watching. Some people may lose a bit of concentration. Their stability with performance might be a bit messed up from that. But you got to get used to that, like, because like, look, for most of the Street Fighter brackets, especially like especially for the recent ones that I played, people definitely were watching and stuff. And during this cave monthly, right, Bro, around grand finals, everybody was watching, dude. At least those that were involved with Dragon Ball or even cared to watch, or even some that were like not in Dragon Ball, but they knew me, right? So they paid attention to watch this. Yeah, people were fucking rooting for Sinkhart, dude. They weren't fucking rooting for me. When he reset bracket, bro, they all yelled. They patted him on the back. Like, I didn't get no cheers. I don't got no cheerleaders, man. He had the cheerleaders. Not to insult his buddies, by the way, but that's just how I talk. But yeah, just imagine that, you know, where everyone's essentially kind of rooting against you in that case. And it's not the first time I've had this happen too, you know. And yeah, he 3-0'd me for a reset. Everyone cheered him on. Most people would begin to crack. Tell me I'm wrong. Most people would begin to crack at that point. But I knew it was at that moment right there not the time to crack. It was time to make an adjustment, you know. There was still the next set to be played. So I understood, like, okay, it's time to, you know, head back to the drawing board and make the smart moves now, you know. And then I made the right ones, and then boom, 3-1, you know. And I went out pretty happy. He definitely was hurt from that loss, I can't lie, looking at his face. But I cheered him on, man. Like, I told him, like, you're a good player, man. Like, you just lost a lot of momentum, you know, halfway through. Even though, like I said, he probably still would have beat me if I decided to play the game that he was playing. But I knew it was time to take the tables to my favor. And as far as this one goes, you know, this was more so of a matter of just me having to kind of maintain my own reputation, even though it's not the biggest thing in the world. It's at a monthly, you know, last one, so it's not like it's just any kind of monthly. But I'm not gonna pretend and say that this is something as big as like Evo, you know, but the idea still stands, and you should really still carry this if you are really serious about this competitive shit. You should still carry some of that in your spirit, you know, because the same situations can happen whether on the grand stages at Evo or at Capcom Cup for $1 million, or at a small local that you come every weekend, you know. And like I said, it's not the first time I've had people cheer on the other end for the other player. That like, I remember for a Street Fighter bracket too, like, I was playing against Akami and stuff, and all of his friends were there behind him cheering him too. Every time he got back, he was playing his game and stuff and doing combos and shit. Like, yeah, his cheerleaders were behind him too, cheering on his name. Every time I showed him who's boss and shit, you know, no, everyone goes silent. And once I beat that match, I you know, no one cheered on for me. And you know what? Sometimes I do like to mess with people and troll. And it's like, yeah, that's what the fuck is up, bitch. Having your cheerleaders cheer behind you. I can't even remember what I said and stuff. Like, well, guess what now, bitch? Now you belong to me. It's like, nah. But that's just how I play, you know. I was trolling him too. I told him also, now see that Tommy Hilfiger jacket, that bitch is mine now, motherfucker. But he knew I was kidding. Like, I don't actually like bully people like that. I just like to play around, you know. But you know, you just have to get used to kind of that too. People hollering and yelling, and just saying like random shit too. That's why a lot of people I see wear headphones and shit. But I used to do that myself too, but sometimes I don't even play music when I play when I have my headphones on. It's just to reduce the amount of noise, because some venues be loud as a motherfucker. So it's just a not to have my ears blown out, you know. And also, like, some of the time nowadays, I don't even care to wear headphones, just because I'm used to it, you know. But I think that's what you guys should be building up towards. Learn to be comfortable in that environment, to where, like, you're able to play with headphones or not. You're able to play within a crowd or not, and you're able to play with a crowd cheering with you or against you, no matter what. And you're always the same, you know. You're like, nothing moves you at that point. So yeah, that's a lot of game I've given y'all, you know. I don't know what you guys are gonna take from this. But it definitely should open your guys' eyes to a lot, hopefully. Especially since I don't see many people even talk about, like, their own experience playing, you know, online, offline. And they don't show their receipts for these too, you know. Unlike, it's like, I don't even see top level players, like, well, I mean, it's because top level players, like, everyone has their eyes on them in the scene, you know. So the guy who wins Evo, yeah, everyone knows. Nobody needs to go asking, you know, what their receipts are, go into their Star GG page and stuff. But, you know, as far as, like, the smaller dudes and stuff, I don't see that at all. Like, and as far as, like, my own competitive, like, journey and stuff, man, I already told you guys, I'm not really pressed about it. I don't need to die being some kind of Evo champ, you know. If it happens one day, then hey, I can't knock it, you know. But I'm just coming on to here to show you guys some of my own, like, F's on my report card, and some of the A's that I have too, you know. But, you know, take for this what it is and stuff. Hopefully you guys get something out of it. And yeah, I gotta get, there's a few things I gotta do actually, but I'm gonna run through this smoothly, you know. I'm enjoying myself now. I have a couple more videos coming out soon. But, you know, like, whenever I usually don't have a schedule, but whenever they do, you know. And if you guys have any questions per se here and there, or want to share your experience, because I would want to share your guys' experience with bracket and stuff. I would actually want to get you guys maybe even pulled up for, like, a video that communicate about this kind of shit, you know, because I find more interesting the stories that people have, you know, when it comes to this shit and their own perspectives. Because at the end of the day, it's these kinds of conversations of knowledge and stuff that I think really where people can really grow from, you know, like, because it's almost like, you know, a plant sprouting in, and whatever fruit comes out of it, you know, it's some that you can pick out and, you know, eat, you know, to like feed oneself with that kind of knowledge, you know. Because there's a lot of things that I've learned from even a lot of the players that I've met locally throughout a lot of different games, you know. I don't just talk to the Dragon Ball or Street Fighter players. I've talked to a lot of the Tekken folk too. So that's pretty much where I'm at now. Whatever happens from here, I'm not sure, because this summer I plan to do a lot of things outside of just, like, the fighting game stuff, you know. I got stuff to do, which is why after I end this, it's time to boot up and head back out to the streets to get some work done, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, share, comment, whatever the fuck these YouTubers say nowadays. And I appreciate y'all for watching, you know. And this is Infinite 47. I'll be seeing y'all around. Peace.